We're going to make some quick and easy nonfiction book covers using the free graphics tool that I put up at DIYbookcovers.com. And first, we're going to just set the size. Right now, it's 5x8. I'm going to change it to 6x9. 6x9 just makes the size a little more regular book size. This is 5x8 is what Amazon recommends right now, but it's just a little bit taller and narrower. And 6x9 is more what people are used to for a book cover, and it gives you a little more space on the edges. So I prefer it for Kindle covers. And we're just going to use some really simple images to make nonfiction book covers. Nonfiction can be pretty easy to design. I mean, usually it's one picture. It's usually one solid color, maybe white on the background. Let's start with just a salad diet type book. I kind of like this one. So the only thing that this tool doesn't do very well is blur out edges like this. But the way to fix it is to add a gradient layer. And I've got some gradient layers saved and ready to go. So here's a white gradient. And I can just put it where I need it to be to get rid of the hard line at the edge of the picture. I'm just going to copy that layer and put one down here too. So that's done, and now this has kind of a smoother edge. And then all we have to do is add some text. For nonfiction book covers, there's really only 3 types of fonts you're going to want to use. And so I'll make 3 different book covers right now and show you those different fonts. This would be one. It's just kind of a standard serif font. And on a white like this, I probably wouldn't go all the way black because that text is just going to be too strong. So I'd probably do like a darker gray so it stands out, but it's not as glaring. Although you could go black with this olive color. People like having the extra big capital letter on the first part of the word, but I usually don't. So I'm going to do it this way, and then I'm going to space this out quite a bit. And then just make it bigger. This font is actually a little bit too pretty for a diet book. It's better for like a paranormal romance or fantasy or something. I'm going to see if I have one that's a little bit less pretty. For serif fonts, this is old standard. It's one of my favorites, but it's a little bit too, what's the word, professional looking. It's more like a bank or something. A diet book, you don't want to be quite so serious. So just a normal serif font is better. I'm going to be adding some more fonts into this program. I think actually the serif probably isn't the best choice for this diet book. I should have gone with sans serif for this one. Serif is a little more professional looking, so it would have been better for the finance or business or something like that. Oops, not that one. I think I'm actually going to save this layer. We'll use that for another cover in a second. Let's just change this one to sans serif. Fits a little bit better with this kind of cover. So that's something that's pretty simple. I could change some of this color to match maybe that olive down there, or the maybe the vegetables. For Kindle covers, a lot of people are making really huge text right now because they want their cover to stand out. I don't think that's necessary as long as you've got really clean fonts, a lot of spacing. It's more important to look professional and to be legible. Legibility is really overrated for book covers. So I could do something like that. It's not too bad for nonfiction. Keep it simple, focus on one pretty central image. I could probably change this center picture, make it a lot bigger, fill up more of the space. Some people don't like white book covers because they say it kind of disappears on Amazon. But a lot of nonfiction book covers are still white and they are selling just fine. So I don't think it's a big deal. So there's nothing fancy, but it's good enough. And it's as good as a lot of other options. I'd probably want to add a subtitle as well, maybe down here. Not a great subtitle, but it's something. Not really believable or healthy. Normally for colors, you want to avoid red and green because it's going to look too Christmassy. And I'm probably going to do that here too. It's hard to avoid looking Christmassy, but I can make this a little bit orange to avoid that. I'm actually just going to go with the light gray. So it's pretty simple. I could add more. I could add some lines or decorations or other things, but sometimes you just want to keep it simple. For a diet book, you really don't need a lot of fancy decoration. what you're really selling is a benefit anyway. So what's really going to matter is this subtitle and making it really keyword rich and really benefit driven. That's going to work for you better. I think I'm going to stop this one here. So if I want to save this as it is, I can just save it as a PNG and then I'll be able to use that on Kindle. And I'm also going to save it as a project file so that you'll be able to get online and open this template and just move stuff around into the background. You'll have your own Kindle cover really easily. So let's make another one. This was kind of a diet one. I'm gonna add a new image. And I think we'll do like a business. That one's cute. So we'll do a money finance one. And I was saying earlier, serif fonts are just a little bit more, I mean, sans serif is good for nonfiction, but serif fonts are just a little bit more professional, trustworthy. So I'm gonna use this one. I'm gonna play around with different size text on this one. Usually you're connecting words like of and the can be smaller. And sometimes if you position them right, you can kind of build a form. You want to keep a lot of space between the text. I'm even going to add a little bit more. I'm going to change this color a little bit to match that money down there. So again, it's really simple. I'm not really doing very much other than adding text, but I have that big center image here. I don't really need the text to do very much except not look bad. The way to make text look bad is to cram it all in or make it too complicated. I actually think it's a little bit crowded already, so I'm going to make this smaller. I'm just going to use the same font down here for the author name. I'm going to space it out more. That's pretty simple. This is almost too large. I really want a lot of space. I think I'm going to add a border on this one. To add a border, I can just make a square and set it to white. And then I see this line width color. I'm just going to add a really light gray. Put it about where I need it. I'm just using the arrow keys to position it where I want it. About centered. And then I'll go to my layers panel and I'll just put that rectangle below everything else. You don't need it for most book covers. I'm actually going to change the color of that line, make it more that greenish color. I don't usually put a border around the edge, and you don't always need one, but in this case, it just makes it look a little bit more professional. I could even make that a double border if I just make another layer with it slightly bigger. Maybe not. Let me get rid of that one. This kind of nonfiction book cover, you're usually going to have a lot of small text too. I should have left room for a nice subtitle. Do that now. So I'm going to have to make this even smaller, but that's okay because a lot of nonfiction these days, that center image is really small. There's a lot of space. So I could do it this way. My subtitle down here. And that's not so bad a cover, so I'm just going to stop. A lot of color, it's simple, but for business, for finance, that'll work really well. Just going to save that. G. And then also as a project file so I can edit it again later. So I told you earlier there were 3 fonts to use for almost all nonfiction. It's basically going to be a sans serif like we used last time, or a simple serif like this, or it's going to be a really big, bold font. So we'll use that one next. I'm going to add another image. And this time we'll do something like a startup cover. Well, let's just use this one. So with this one, it's going to be a little tricky because we've got to match this background color with this background color. There are ways around it. I could go like this and feather the edges. Oops. But I don't think I'm going to do that. Instead, I'm going to import a gradient that I've got saved. And that'll make that transition for me. And then I'm going to try to match this gray color up on top. I won't be able to do it exactly, but I should be able to get pretty close. So that's pretty close. And then I can add in, use this gradient again here, but I'll make it a little bit darker. And I almost totally deleted that line. So that's looking pretty good so far. So I'll just change this one. And besides serif and sans serif, the other one that you'll use a lot for nonfiction is a really tall, bold font. Like I have one here that's called Go Bold. Um, but Rainbow is also a good one. This Rainbow. A lot of startup type business books, they use Bebas New. Once you learn to recognize it, you'll see it on tons of book covers. It's probably the most used font in book cover design. And usually they'll use really big font. So um, just do it that way. It's not a very interesting title, but it's benefit driven. I actually like this to be a lot smaller. In Photoshop or something, I could just delete this background layer. It's a little harder to do with this program. I think I'm going to make this one a little darker too. My subtitle's kind of hidden down there, so I'm going to have to find a place to put it. And I'm just going to keep that serif font because it's nice to mix a serif with a sans serif. I'm throwing in some extra benefits in my subtitle. It's a little bit crowded at the bottom. So I'm going to move these up a bit. If I had more time, I'd probably make this a lot smaller and put more space around the edges. Oh, that looks okay. The only thing it's missing is a little flash of color. So I could add something red, maybe a red circle or something. Like, I can go up here, fill that with a red gradient. And then I could put like bonus chapter or free download or whatever. You don't need it necessarily, but just a little bit of color somewhere would really grab their eye. This probably won't work, but yeah, it doesn't really fit anywhere. But if you had a reason, like maybe a review or second edition or something to put in that circle. I don't usually put badges on the cover, but with something that's plain, you could do it. You could pull it off. I'm gonna leave it off though. So this is not so bad of a cover. I mean, that we made in 10 or 15 minutes with this free online program. So I'm gonna save it as it is, PNG. PNG is just gonna be better quality than the JPEG. I'm not really sure where I am on time. I don't see a timer like I'm used to, but it's probably been quite a while. So I'm going to stop this video here, and then I think we'll make a few more nonfiction Kindle covers.